Good morning, everyone. My name's Rob Walpole, Vice President of Delta Cargo. Thanks for joining Tom and myself this morning. I'm joined by Tom Puglisi, the Global Air Operations Manager at Kuehne Nagel. Kuehne Nagel are one of our customers, a company that we know well, and I think they know us well. And today, we're talking about digital transformation in the air cargo sector. It's an industry where things are moving pretty quickly. There's a lot of opportunity, and we're interested to talk about some of the things that are going on in both our sides of that business and sharing some thoughts and some ideas with both of you. So, Tom, thank you for joining us. Maybe a couple of words from you in terms of Kuehne Nagel and yourself for the viewers that we have this morning.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Rob. And thanks for allowing us to participate and provide our perspective on such an important topic. As Rob mentioned, my name's Thomas Puglisi, and I'm the Global Head of Operations for Air Logistics at Kuehne Nagel. Under my purview, I have a great team helping me oversee operational and process activities, our air logistics systems, our e-touch initiatives under which digitalization actually falls, customer onboarding, regulatory, compliance, training, and a few other fun areas of the business.
Thank you. So we have some fun and interesting things, I think, to talk about and share with all of you that are with us this morning. So digital transformation in the air cargo sector. I guess my personal view here, and for many of you that may be viewing, like Thomas and I think have spent time in the industry, in the supply chain industry, and many parts of the supply chain sector have digitized fairly rapidly. In the last years, the air cargo sector is one that catches up and is doing a lot of things fairly rapidly to provide the level of transparency, information currency, and a lot of the other things that go with that digital transformation. And we, for sure, are working fairly hard in those areas. From a Delta standpoint, we for sure are looking at building what we think is a digital transaction website for deltacargo.com, what we call DCDC, for our small to mid-sized customers to be able to have seamless transactions. We build API capability for our corporate customers like Thomas and Kuehne Nagel. We're moving towards cashless transactions. We're building some other capabilities in terms of timely scanning and milestone management within our operations for customers. So maybe like many parts of the sector, we have a lot of things going on in the digital transformation area. One of those topics that's, I think, particularly current for Kuehne Nagel and Delta is the implementation of APIs. So we at Delta Cargo implemented or set up APIs last year in 2020. Kuehne Nagel were one of the early adopters of that platform with us, and we have worked through that process together. And Thomas, to you, I was interested in as a customer in that respect. You know, your experience, what's working, what's not, what are the opportunities in that area. Interested in how you see it and how important that part of the digitization model is for your business.
Thanks, Rob. I think just as a general philosophy, it's encouraging to see our industry continue to embrace technology. As you mentioned, too often we hear that we're somewhat behind the curve. And I think integrating across partners via APIs is really a demonstrable way in which we can evidence our use of technology and how we work within the air cargo industry. But of course, there's fundamental reasons why we do it, not just for the sake of the technology itself, but rather because the technology, like API integration, makes good sense. It yields tangible results by eliminating inefficiencies, speeding up time to access information, request and process information, and it's really an enabler that facilitates automation. Our experience working with Delta has been very, very positive. Why? Because we both see and understand the big picture, and I think that's very important. We acknowledge that it's a process that develops and matures over time, and that perspective really helps us overcome any of the daily challenges that might arise. I think overall we're learning how these types of initiatives can really streamline the entire procure-to-pay process, which is a big target for us at Kuehne Nagel and across the industry in reality. And that really allows us to focus then on our customers as opposed to focusing on just the mechanics of what we do. And of course, it doesn't really end there. We see other areas of opportunity for the industry within the sphere of cashless payments. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Rob, and I'd love to hear more about what Delta is doing there.
Yeah, I'd like to get to cashless payments in a minute. There was a question in what you just talked through with the APIs and from your customers' perspectives, the important parts. So, if you look at what the company's done so far with APIs, where would you say the biggest value lever has been for you guys?
Well, it's a great question. I would say the biggest value is in speed. If you think about the ways that we have historically communicated in the past with our partners, you look at email as an example. Email has always been a primary way in which we communicate. And I'm a big believer that email as a business process is just not the way you want to work. So for us, the ability to interact systematically on a host-to-host basis eliminates all of the time spent just in sending emails. And it allows us to really take information, transact it electronically, and then hold that information so that we can utilize it in our operating systems. So the replies that we get are just not replies from emails that we then have to transpose or worry about if somebody interprets it correctly. This is first generation data, and it allows us to integrate it into our systems, and then we can use it. And so that speed in and of itself is a huge lever for us.
Yeah, it's an interesting, if I think about kind of the question that I asked you and think about it from our perspective. So, excuse me, within Delta, we have a customer service center, 150 people, a couple of locations, and the proportion of their time that is transacting email, like a high proportion of what they do is actually email transactions with customers as well as phone calls. And that's where we get the benefits is those people can be working on or engaged in other activities, taking orders, talking to customers proactively rather than answering email questions about where's my shipment or fundamental, have you got this order? Is it going to be in on this flight tomorrow at this time? And as the industry scales, and I think we mentioned that Kuehne are a fairly early adopter in this respect. As the industry scales, there'll be a lot of efficiency drilled out of those processes, and for us, that's call center can then be doing things and engaging in activities with customers that grow our business rather than where's my shipment part. So it's a good step.
Correct, and I would just add to that, Rob. If you think about it in terms of the overall air freight chain itself, if there's time spent in communicating between the forwarder and the air carrier, think about how that time then multiplies when the forwarder has to talk to their customer. It somewhat amplifies in terms of time spent. The longer it takes for us to communicate with each other between KN and Delta, for example, then the longer the end customer, who we're all focused on at the end of the day, has to wait for information. And so anytime that we can speed up our own interaction, and we can digitize our own interaction, then has an end benefit for the customer who's transacting with us.
Mm-hmm. You're right. No, good. It's good. It's a good example. You mentioned cashless payments, and I know I also in the intro sort of talked about that as a part of the business where I think we are focused, and certainly the industry is focused in what we can do to move towards cashless transactions on a full service basis. And for Delta Cargo, from a cashless payment perspective, we implemented the pay cargo model as part of our solution, or built the pay cargo model into our solution last year, and headed down the path of being able to automate delivery transactions and the payments that go along with everything from import, customs, storage, last mile delivery, etc. It's kind of a similar. It's a different example, but the overall aim is similar, of course, in terms of looking to eliminate manual transactions in that process. And as a logistics background person, but from a different sector of the logistics market, one of the things when I really got into this business was the percentage of transactions of in our cargo hubs where people will walk in with a check or a credit card into a customer service desk at the customer service desk in JFK is 30, 40, 50% in some locations are transactions that are processed like that. And excuse me. So and the opportunity that comes with moving those to automated transactions is significant also. And we're also headed down that path of moving to cashless transactions is our overall aim. And I'm interested in your views there, how you see it from a Kuehne perspective, both the experience with the model that we've built, but also your experience with the industry in general in terms of how that part works.
Thanks, Rob. I think any time that we can eliminate some of the archaic ways of doing business is a positive. And working with Delta on initiatives like this is really no different. I think here, too, we both see the big picture, and I'm glad you summarized it in the way that you did. Because in reality, what this type of engagement does is can immediately help us break through some of the bottlenecks associated with the old ways of doing things. If you just think about it, and I'm glad you mentioned the situation in a JFK, and JFK is endemic to other places around the U.S. If you think about how many man hours have historically been spent in reconciling individual accounts, sorting through stacks of invoices or lists of data online. And I actually remember in the not too distant past, now I'm going to date myself a little bit, the days of having to manage coupon books. And you may chuckle, but if you think about how far we've come and how far we can still go, I think initiatives like this really establish the baseline for future development. For companies like Kuehne Nagel, large companies, but even small for that matter, you mentioned the process of issuing checks. There are several steps that a company typically has to go through in order to have a check issued. And there are various people that have to do sign-offs, et cetera, et cetera. And so when I mention bottlenecks, these are some of the typical bottlenecks that you can actually eliminate when you go to that cashless process. I think also in terms of the overall accounting process, when you have to reconcile accounts, it makes it so much easier. And I think these are really some of the inherent benefits that we get out of these types of engagements because it really eliminates the old paper way of doing things. And so I'm very encouraged to see Delta going down that road, and as an industry that we're really leveraging that type of model across the board. I think it's very, very important. And I think it really just establishes a baseline of where we can go further. And in that context, I'd really like to understand what we can expect next from Delta.
Yeah, right. We have a fairly aggressive plan in the digitization space. And again, if I just go back for 1 minute to the cashless payment part, the efficiency is one big part of it for sure. And I think we all see those elements that you described. The other part from a financial perspective is, and again for us, but also for our customers, is in DSO, like, sort of recovery of charges and the time, we're at 60 to 90 days, sometimes squabbling about transactions and just all of that noise that it provides the opportunity to address. So it's like any of those topics, the couple we talked about, APIs and cashless payments, the knock-on effects, as you mentioned, with your customers. So when we talk about the benefits, that's multiplied as you go towards your customers, and the cashless payment part is the same. It's a real what I would think of as a knock-on effect opportunity, in that there's a lot of downstream benefits we get. In terms of where we're headed, as I started to say, we have an aggressive plan in terms of the digitization journey we head down. Talked about those couple of key elements: APIs, cashless payments. For our small to medium customers, we have what we think is I use the term best in class, but we think it is best in class in terms of our deltacargo.com website and the ease of doing business for our small to medium customers. It's clearly not a key platform for companies like yourselves, but for our small to medium customers that transact that way, it's very important, and it allows us to move transaction volume from phone and email and others into digital space, and also just a very easy way to do business. So enhancing and growing the capability of our DC, as we call it, deltacargo.com platform, e-quotes, dynamic pricing, booking profile and order management for our customers, and one of the other big ones, which is a little bit internal, but it provides customer benefits as well, of course, is our milestone management process, so that we can track at an SKU level through the pieces of the supply chain that we control, which is a lot about putting in place scanning milestones in all of our network. Not only it got on the plane, it got off the plane, it got delivered, but the key milestones in between those that give our customers better transparency on what's going on with their product. So it's a multi-year journey. You know that, Thomas, and I think all of our viewers maybe know that as well. But we certainly have some aggressive plans in building out our capability and trying to lead the industry in that respect. How about you guys? It's an ecosystem we live in, right, from a supply chain and logistics standpoint, and all players have their focus and their priorities in the digitization space. So also for you guys, what are the priorities?
Well, I'm happy you brought up some of the components that Delta is going to continue to focus on and look to leverage in the future. At KN, we're constantly looking at the various touch points within the overall air cargo cycle that we can digitize. And we really approach it from a touch point of view, because there are different touch points within the cycle that require engagement from different partners, be it a shipper, a consignee, regulatory agencies, our air cargo partners. So we're looking at various touch points that we can start to engage with these parties to see what we can digitize. As we mature in what we've started to develop, we're always looking to explore even more touch points. And these can be in the areas of enhanced capacity transparency. I think dynamic pricing is a great point that you bring up. That's certainly a buzzword in the industry, but it's certainly something that has a tangible benefit. I think looking at areas to facilitate quick turnaround times for imports, and really a multitude of other opportunities in the space of product development. As we start to see, and 2020 was a great example, we start to see various requirements that are very, very product specific. And I think a collaborative engagement between the forwarding community, between our air cargo partners, and developing products to really cater to specifics centered around certain demographic of cargo, I think is very important. And I would say we shouldn't forget, and we must continue to explore how to better utilize what we already have in place to an even higher degree. You had mentioned scanning is a great area that I think we can continue to do more, even within the overall sphere of CIQ, initiatives such as e-airway bill. And there's really more that required a continued focus and attention. So we have a lot of the building blocks there. And so our focus is obviously on future development, but it's also leveraging what's already in place, because there are good things in place.
Oh, as we said at the start of the discussion, lots going on in this world, and specifically within the air cargo and air logistics market. Lots of fun stuff to do, lots of opportunity, but the building blocks are pretty solid. It's a good point you raise. Thomas, thank you for joining, sharing your thoughts, being a customer, working with us, and sharing your thoughts with the people that joined us this morning. To those that did join our session, thank you for joining, and hopefully you got some value out of the topics that we were able to exchange today and take the opportunity to talk about. And if any of those that you wanted to take up further, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks again. Thank you to FreightWaves, and we hope that for all of the viewers and visitors that you enjoyed this and the other sessions that you have the opportunity to review. Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers and stay safe.